If you've ever walked a dealership lot and wondered why a brand new RV can already have loose trim, crooked doors, or even signs of a leak, you're not imagining things. In this video, we're going to break down what's happening behind the factory doors, how the business model rewards speed, how modern construction choices can fail when water gets in, and why new doesn't always mean built to last. This isn't brand bashing, and it's not about shaming owners. It's about understanding the system so you can protect your money, avoid the worst designs, and shop like someone who knows what to look for. Number 1. The 80% illusion. Walk onto a modern RV lot, and it feels like you're looking at dozens of different companies battling it out. Different logos, different heritage stories, different brochures acting like the brand is its own little world. The uncomfortable reality is that in the categories most people actually buy, especially towables, market power stacks up fast. In travel trailers, for example, 2 parent companies alone can account for roughly 3/4 of the segment in a single model year, and adding one more major group can push you past that feels like almost everything threshold. That's where the 80% idea comes from in the real world. Not that every RV is literally identical, but that most new units are being built inside a system dominated by a few corporate umbrellas, with the same cost targets, the same production pressure, the same supplier constraints, and the same shortcuts that show up again and again. And once you're inside that system, the RV itself starts to make more sense as a product. An RV isn't just a vehicle. It's a small house that gets shaken like a paint mixer at highway speed, baked in sun, frozen in winter storage, twisted on uneven campground pads, and slammed by crosswinds. A normal house doesn't do that. A normal car doesn't do that either. So, if you're thinking, why does this brand new thing already feel like it's coming apart? The answer usually isn't one single bad part. It's the whole approach. Build fast, build light, hit a price point, and let service sort it out later. That's the part most shoppers don't see. They see soft close drawers and LED lighting and a giant TV, and they assume the bones are just as modern. But the bones are where the industry plays defense. If you can sell the feeling, you can delay the moment when the customer realizes they bought a structure that depends on sealant and staples surviving years of vibration and weather. And this is where the factory secret starts to sound less like a conspiracy and more like a business model. The secret isn't that one brand is evil and another brand is saintly. The secret is that when a market is this concentrated, the incentives get standardized. The playbook spreads. If one company proves it can sell a lightweight laminated wall at a certain cost, others follow. If one company proves customers will tolerate long service delays because that's just RV life, others stop investing in preventing the delay. When shoppers don't have true alternatives at scale, the market stops punishing bad behavior fast enough to matter. So when people say, most new RVs are garbage, they're not usually saying every unit is hopeless. They're saying the overall system has trained them to expect issues as normal. Leaks, miswired accessories, slide adjustments, doors that don't latch right, trim that falls off, a roof penetration that wasn't sealed cleanly, a cabinet that was never squared up. That expectation is the real red flag. In most industries, a brand new product isn't supposed to come with an emotional support toolkit. Now connect that market reality to the next piece: how these things are actually built. Because once you understand the build process, the problems stop feeling random. They start feeling predictable. Number 2, how RVs get built. If you want to understand why a brand new RV can feel worn out on day one, you have to picture the factory, not the campground. Most RVs are not built like cars. Car plants are heavily automated, processes are repeatable, and changes are slow because testing is expensive and recalls are brutal. RV plants, especially in towables, lean hard on manual labor. Human hands do the cutting, fitting, stapling, routing, and sealing. That isn't automatically bad. Hand-built can be great when the people have time and training. The problem is, what happens when you mix manual construction with high speed and high volume? An RV is basically a stack of subassemblies: frame, floor, walls, roof, openings, slide boxes, Wiring, plumbing, gas lines, appliances, furniture, trim, sealants, and the endless little accessories that make it look finished. Every step has to land within a tolerance that makes the next step possible. If the wall isn't perfectly square, cabinets fight you. If the roofline isn't straight, the trim hides it until it doesn't. If the slide opening isn't aligned, you compensate with adjustments that reduce seal compression, which makes water intrusion more likely, which turns into rot, delamination, and mold risk later. And here's the part shoppers don't realize. A lot of RV quality is really geometry. Square openings, flat surfaces, consistent fastener depth, clean wire routing, proper strain relief, properly supported plumbing, correct clearances around heat sources, correct venting, clean adhesive surfaces before lamination, sealant applied in the right bead size, on the right substrate, at the right temperature, with the right cure time. That's not glamorous, so it isn't what sells on the showroom floor, but it's what determines whether the RV feels solid in year 3. The industry also moves fast in ways that should make you nervous. RV makers can push out new floor plans, new trims, new additions, and revised models quickly. In the best case, that's responsiveness. In the worst case, it means design changes outpace validation. You end up with first-year problems that owners basically beta test. That's not a fun role when you're financing the beta test. There's also the supplier reality. RV builders buy appliances, axles, windows, doors, tanks, pumps, furnaces, air conditioners, electronics, and hardware from many suppliers. If a supplier changes materials or a shipment is delayed, production pressure doesn't disappear. Workarounds show up. Substitute parts show up. The factory keeps moving. Later, the owner learns that the part is on back order because the same supply chain that forced the workaround is now slowing the fix. Now take that production environment and add the thing that turns small mistakes into a lifestyle: vibration. RVs live under vibration. Everything loosens. Fasteners back out. Plastic fittings fatigue. Wire supports break. Caulk cracks. Tape lifts. If the build wasn't clean and consistent from the start, the highway finishes the job. That's the mechanical reality. The financial reality is even sharper because it shapes behavior on the line. And that brings us to the pay system that keeps coming up when workers and investigators talk about why RV defects look the way they do. Number 3, the piece rate trap. A lot of people assume factory workers are paid hourly, and quality problems happen because someone didn't care. In many RV plants, the bigger issue is the incentive structure. Investigations and reporting have described a common system in RV manufacturing where workers earn a base rate and then a production bonus tied to how many units get pushed out. In plain English, speed becomes the easiest way to protect your paycheck. Slow down to fix something, and you're not being a hero. You're risking your money and irritating everyone downstream who needs the line to keep moving. And you can see why this matters in a product like an RV. The work is physical. It's repetitive. It's not always stable year-round because the RV market swings hard with the economy. Plants compete for labor. Turnover can be high. Training can be inconsistent. Then you drop a pay system on top that rewards the exact thing you don't want in a complex build: rushing. The result isn't just sloppy workmanship. It's specific types of sloppiness that match time pressure. You see staples where screws should have been used. You see wires routed across sharp edges because the better route takes longer. You see fasteners driven a little too deep and crushing material, which weakens the joint. You see sealant smeared instead of laid cleanly because cleaning and masking takes time. You see a fixture installed good enough because the worker's goal is to hit quota, not to own the RV 6 months later. One of the most important points from reporting on the industry is that a lot of RV recalls aren't driven by some exotic engineering failure. They're driven by human error in assembly, exactly what you'd expect when speed is a core metric. That's not an insult to workers. It's a predictable outcome of the system they're working under. This is also why shoppers get confused. They think, if a company is huge, shouldn't it be better? In cars, scale often improves quality because you can afford automation, testing, and process control. In RVs, scale can mean more models, more output, more pressure to ship, and more reliance on a labor pool that's constantly being recycled through different plants. And when that's the environment, quality assurance often becomes a paperwork exercise instead of a stop-the-line culture. A real stop-the-line culture costs money. It slows throughput. It creates uncomfortable internal metrics. If leadership is judged on volume and margins, you already know what gets prioritized. So when people talk about factory secrets, the real secret is that you can't separate the product from the incentives. If you want a durable RV, you're fighting a system that rewards speed, not durability. Now put that labor reality next to the next layer. Federal recall data and the pattern that shows up when these assembly-driven issues scale across hundreds of thousands of units. Number 4. The recall pattern. Recalls are a weird topic in the RV world because they sound like an automotive thing, and people assume recalls only happen when a part supplier messes up. But recent reporting has highlighted that, in RV manufacturing, recall volume can be driven heavily by assembly issues. And the numbers have gotten attention because one major RV manufacturer has been identified in analysis of federal data as having more recalls over a multi-year window than any single automaker or RV manufacturer. That doesn't mean every recalled unit burned down or crashed. A recall is a safety-related defect or non-compliance that the manufacturer agrees to address. Some recalls are small, some are massive, some are about fire risk, some are about carbon monoxide exposure risk, some are about wiring, fuses, and overcurrent protection. And here's the key point. Even when a recall fix is simple, the ownership experience is not simple. You still have to schedule service. You still have to wait for parts. You still lose time. You still wonder what else was assembled wrong that didn't rise to the level of a safety recall. It's also important to understand what recall data suggests about a factory's habits. If a company is constantly issuing recalls tied to assembly mistakes, that's a signal that process control is weak. It doesn't tell you everything about every unit, but it tells you the factory system is letting a lot slip through. And there's a second layer here that matters to buyers. The difference between a recall and a service bulletin. In the past, regulators have pushed manufacturers to treat certain safety-related issues as recalls rather than quietly sending guidance to dealers. That matters because recalls require free fixes and reporting. Quiet guidance doesn't create the same obligation. This is where the RV world can feel like a loophole ecosystem. The product is complex. The industry standards focus heavily on safety systems, propane, electrical, fire, and life safety, not on long-term durability. So you end up with an RV that might pass a safety inspection at delivery, but still be built in a way that falls apart under real use. And then there's the part nobody wants to talk about out loud. A recall doesn't automatically mean the fix will happen quickly. Owners can sit on open recalls for months because the dealer is booked, the part is unavailable, or the manufacturer is slow to reimburse labor. Meanwhile, the owner's RV is unusable or risky to use. In the worst cases, owners don't even know a recall exists until they stumble onto it. If you want to understand why customers describe new RVs as garbage, look at the emotion behind that word. It's not just anger about a broken thing. It's anger about being stuck. A house on wheels is supposed to expand your freedom. A house on wheels that sits in a service queue does the opposite. So recalls aren't just a safety story. They're a quality culture story. And once you understand that, the next problem makes perfect sense. The modern wall system that turns small water leaks into catastrophic damage. Number 5. The wall that fails. The most financially brutal failure mode in a modern RV isn't usually an appliance. Appliances are annoying, but they're replaceable. The brutal failures happen when water gets into the structure, especially in RVs that use laminated sandwich construction. Here's the simple version of how many laminated RV walls are built. You have an exterior skin, often fiberglass. Behind that is a thin backing layer, commonly a wood product like Luan. You'll also see it spelled Lauan. Behind that is foam insulation. Then an interior wall panel. The layers are glued together under pressure to create a light, stiff panel. When it's done correctly, it's strong for the weight. It also keeps costs down and helps manufacturers advertise lightweight towing. The problem is what happens when water gets into that sandwich. Water doesn't just stain it. Water attacks the glue line and the wood. Over time, the bond can fail. The fiberglass skin can bubble outward. That bubbling is what people call delamination. And when delamination is caused by moisture intrusion and wood breakdown, you don't just re-glue it and call it a day. You're dealing with compromised material inside the wall. The repair can require major panel replacement, and in some cases, it's not economically rational on an older unit. That's how you end up with a rig that looks fine from 10 feet away, but is basically a structural loss. Now here's what makes this so frustrating. The leak that started it can be tiny. A hairline crack in sealant. A roof penetration where the bead wasn't continuous. A window flange with uneven butyl tape compression. A corner trim that wasn't sealed well. A marker light that let water wick in. None of these sound dramatic. But in a laminated wall system with wood in the core, the long-term effect can be dramatic. Some manufacturers and higher-end builds use composite panels instead of Luan in parts of the wall system. One well-known example is Asdel, a composite panel marketed specifically to avoid the rot and swelling problems that wood brings. That can reduce the risk of moisture-driven wall failure because the composite doesn't rot like wood. But here's the detail. Buyers need to keep straight. Composite panels don't make an RV waterproof. They just make one failure mode less catastrophic. If you still have bad seals, you still have water intrusion. You still have corrosion risks. You still have mold risk in other materials. You still have damage to insulation and interior finishes. So it's not a magic shield. It's a smarter material choice inside a product that still depends on sealing and maintenance. And this is where the industry's incentives show up again. Laminated walls are cheaper and lighter than many alternative constructions. They help hit price points and tow ratings. They also create a kind of delayed accountability. The wall doesn't always fail in month 3. It fails in year 2, 3, or 5. Right when many owners are out of the short base warranty window and the manufacturer can point to maintenance as the reason. Which brings us to the most misunderstood truth in RV ownership. Water intrusion is not treated like a rare event. In the fine print of many warranties, maintaining exterior seals is placed on the owner, and damage related to water leaks can be excluded if maintenance wasn't done the way the manual expects. That means the same system that uses sealant as a structural defense also makes the owner responsible for the sealant surviving real life. Now, if walls are the slow disaster, roofs and slides are the fast entry points. So let's talk about the places water actually gets in, and why brand new doesn't protect you. Number 6, roofs, slides, and seams. If you want to predict where an RV will leak, don't start with the brand. Start with the openings. Every penetration is a bet. Roof vents, skylights, antennas, solar mounts, ladder mounts, awning brackets, clearance lights, plumbing vents, AC gaskets, slide toppers, roof edges, corner trims, and every window and door flange. Most RV roofs are built from common families of materials like rubber membranes, EPDM or TPO, or fiberglass, depending on the build. These roof systems can work. The issue isn't that the material is automatically bad. The issue is that roofs rely on seams, termination bars, sealants, and correct installation. And sealants aren't permanent. They age. UV exposure cooks them. Temperature cycles expand and contract everything. Vibration flexes joints. Tree branches scrape surfaces. Even a perfectly built roof needs inspection over time. The most common owner mistake is thinking, it's new, so it shouldn't need attention. The RV industry's own maintenance guidance for roof membranes often encourages regular cleaning and inspection, because that's how you catch early cracking, lifted sealant edges, or punctures before they become structural damage. Some roof product guidance even talks about cleaning multiple times a year, depending on conditions, which gives you an idea of how normal ongoing roof care is in this world. Now add slide outs. A slide is basically a moving room with seals that must work while stationary and while traveling. Slides create big cutouts in the RV body, and those cutouts change the way the structure flexes. The slide mechanisms need alignment. The seals need correct compression. The slide roof needs correct drainage. If a slide is slightly out of square, you can end up with uneven seal pressure. tight on one corner, loose on another. And a loose corner is a water path. There's also the simple physics of water movement. Water doesn't just fall straight down. At highway speed, rain can be forced upward and sideways. Water can get driven into tiny gaps. Capillary action can wick moisture along fasteners and trim edges. That's why small sealing mistakes become big problems over time. And this is why leaks on the dealer lot isn't as shocking as it sounds. A leak can show up immediately if a seam was never sealed correctly, or if a fixture wasn't tightened evenly, or if the window flange wasn't bedded correctly. A lot of leaks don't require years to develop. Sometimes they just require the first hard rain. So if you're looking at a brand new unit and you see rippled fiberglass, soft spots, staining, or swelling around trim, that's not normal break-in. That's a sign the sealing system already lost the fight. Now the next piece is the part that turns defects into long-term resentment. What happens when you try to get it fixed through the official pipeline? Number 7. The warranty bottleneck. Most buyers imagine warranty service works like car service. You show up, the dealer fixes it, the manufacturer pays, and you're back on the road quickly. RV warranty reality is usually slower, more complicated, and full of gaps. First, RV dealers often can't just do whatever they want and bill the manufacturer. They have to document, submit claims, get approvals, and follow labor time allowances. If the manufacturer argues about whether something is covered, the dealer can be stuck in the middle. If the part is back-ordered, the RV waits. If the dealer is overloaded, the RV waits. If the manufacturer's reimbursement process is slow, the dealer is less motivated to prioritize the job. None of that is personal. It's just how the incentives line up. Second, many warranties draw hard lines between defects in materials and workmanship and maintenance. Seals, caulking, adjustments, and water-related damage can land in the maintenance bucket fast, especially if the manufacturer can argue the owner didn't inspect or maintain seals the way the manual expects. Some warranty documents are very direct about excluding damage related to water leaks if exterior seals weren't properly maintained. That puts owners in a rough spot. The failure mode is common, and the responsibility gets pushed onto the owner unless the timeline is perfectly clear. Third, even when something is covered, the process can stretch out long enough that the RV is basically unusable. And that's where you get the broader legal pressure building in the background. California's lemon law system, for example, has seen a surge in filings in recent years, with reporting describing the volume climbing into the tens of thousands. That doesn't mean every case is an RV, and it doesn't mean every claim is valid. It does mean the whole warranty dispute ecosystem is under strain. More conflicts, more delays, more people escalating because normal service channels aren't working fast enough. And here's the part that quietly wrecks people financially. You can be making payments while the RV sits. Insurance still runs. Storage still runs. Trips get canceled. Depreciation doesn't pause. A lot of owners don't call their RV garbage because the cabinet door was crooked. They call it garbage because the ownership experience feels like paying to be ignored. So how do manufacturers protect themselves? They lean on standards language and compliance seals that sound comforting, but don't promise what buyers assume they promise. That brings us to a key misunderstanding that shows up constantly in RV shopping. Number 8, safety standards versus quality. In the RV world, you'll hear about industry standards and certification seals, especially in North America. The important thing to know is what those standards are designed to do, and what they are not designed to do. Standards like NFPA 1192 are focused on fire and life safety systems in recreational vehicles, propane system safety, electrical safety, exits, and related safety requirements. These standards matter. They reduce real risk. They can help make sure an RV has appropriate protections for things like carbon monoxide and safe LP system design. But passing a safety standard is not the same thing as building a durable product. A unit can meet a safety code and still be cheaply assembled. A unit can meet a safety code and still have walls that are vulnerable to moisture damage. A unit can meet a safety code and still have bad fit and finish, weak fastener strategy, and a roof bead that was applied too thin. This is where buyers get misled, not always intentionally, but consistently. A sales pitch can blur the line between "this meets safety standards" and "this is high quality." Those are different claims. In many cases, the standards are minimums. They're not a promise of premium construction. There's also a regulatory reality. RVs live in a space that doesn't always match the way consumers think about cars or houses. The coach portion of a motorhome, for example, is its own thing layered on top of a chassis. Towables are their own category. You can have a situation where the chassis is solid, but the house portion is where the problems stack up. Now, this doesn't mean standards are useless. It means you should treat them as baseline safety, not as a quality badge. If you're buying a structure that relies on sealants and manual assembly, durability comes from build philosophy and process control, not just from a seal near the door. So if you're trying to avoid becoming another brand new RV horror story, you need a different approach to shopping. Not emotional, not brand loyal. More like an auditor. And that's what the next section is about. Number 9, buying like an auditor. An auditor mindset starts with one rule. Stop shopping the decor first. Decor is easy to change. Structure is expensive. Start with the corporate reality and the build type. In towables, if most of the volume is dominated by a couple of parent companies, you have to assume the average unit is engineered to hit a price point and volume target. That doesn't mean you can't find a good one. It means you should expect variation, and you should inspect like you expect variation. Then focus on construction choices that reduce catastrophic failure modes. One big question is wall construction. Is it laminated? If yes, what's in the core? Is it wood-based Luen, or is it a composite panel? If it's composite, is it used in all walls or only certain sections? The sales team may not know. Ask for documentation. Ask the manufacturer's build sheet language. Ask what's used behind the fiberglass. Next, look for designs that reduce complexity. More slides means more openings. More openings means more seal surfaces. More seal surfaces means more maintenance and more risk. A simple floor plan can be boring on a showroom tour, but boring is often durable. Then look at weight honesty. Many problems show up when owners tow near limits. Frames flex, suspensions get punished, tires run hot, bearings suffer, slide alignment suffers, seals suffer. Even if the unit is technically towable by a certain class of truck, that doesn't mean it tows well in real conditions with water, gear, food, and full propane. If you want fewer problems, you want margin. Now, here are 3 buying approaches that tend to reduce risk compared to the mainstream, walk into any lot, and buy whatever looks nice approach. Not guarantees. Risk reducers. First approach, pre-peak, pre-rush used units with documented care. In practical terms, that means older units that have already proven they don't leak, with maintenance records and visible inspection results. You're buying something that has survived vibration and weather long enough to reveal whether it was built straight. Second approach, smaller builders and specialty constructions that avoid the most common failure modes. Molded fiberglass travel trailers are a good example because they can reduce seam count and avoid laminated sidewall delamination in the typical sense. Brands in this category often talk openly about molded shells and fewer leak paths. This doesn't make them immune to water intrusion. Windows and roof penetrations still exist, but it changes the structure's relationship with water. Third approach. If you're considering imports or older niche vehicles, only do it inside the law and with full awareness of parts and service realities. The US has an import exemption often described as a 25-year rule for vehicles old enough to be imported without meeting certain modern safety standards, and emissions exemptions have their own rules as well. This path can work for some buyers, but it's not a shortcut to perfection. It's a trade, lower purchase price, and often simpler engineering in exchange for being your own support system and dealing with state-level registration and compliance details. Now, no matter which approach you like, there's one move that can save you thousands: independent inspection. Dealers do PDIs, but they're incentivized to deliver units. Independent inspectors are incentivized to find issues. In the RV world, organizations like NRVIA exist specifically around pre-purchase inspections. That's not a luxury, it's a defense mechanism. And once you adopt that mindset, you stop asking which brand is best, and you start asking which unit is verifiably straight, dry, and correctly assembled. That brings us to the most practical part: what to check before you sign anything or accept delivery. Number 10. The lot inspection playbook. This is the part most buyers skip because it feels awkward to be that person on a dealership lot. The reality is, you're not being difficult. You're being normal in an industry where defects are common enough that federal regulators and major media have paid attention to it. Start with water. Not later. Not after the first trip. On the lot. Walk the roof if it's rated for walking, and only if conditions are safe. If you can't safely walk it, use a ladder at the edges and inspect from multiple angles. You're looking for clean, continuous sealant beads around every penetration. You're looking for gaps, bubbles, lifted edges, cracks, or spots where sealant looks thin and smeared instead of formed. Look at termination bars and roof edges. Look at the front and rear caps where they meet the roof. Those seams matter. Then inspect every window and door flange. You're looking for consistent compression and clean sealing. Inside, open cabinets around exterior walls and corners and smell for any musty odor. A brand new RV should not smell damp. It might smell like materials, but damp is different. Next, inspect laminated sidewalls for early signs of trouble. Stand at a shallow angle and look for waves, bubbles, or ripples that don't match normal reflections. Press gently in suspicious areas. You're not trying to damage anything. You're trying to see if it feels solid and bonded. Pay attention around windows, marker lights, and corners, common water paths. Now move underneath. The underbelly hides a lot. Look for hanging insulation, loose coroplast, low spots that could hold water, torn tape, and exposed wiring. Look at where plumbing penetrates the floor. Look at tank supports. Look at dump valves and fittings. A lot of first trip problems are basic. A loose clamp, a kinked line, a fitting that wasn't fully seated. Check the running gear like you actually plan to tow. Tires. Confirm date codes and load range. Axles. Look for obvious misalignment cues, like unusual tire wear, even on a new unit that's been towed between lots. Suspension. Look at shackles and equalizers. If it has wet bolts or grease points, good, then confirm they've been serviced. If the dealer says it's new so it doesn't matter, that's not a serious answer. Now check electrical the boring way. Plug into shore power and test every outlet you can reach. Test GFCI outlets by tripping and resetting. Run the air conditioner. Run the microwave. Turn on water pump. Run lights. Test USB ports. If it has inverter functions, test them. If it has solar, confirm the controller reads correctly and that charging behavior makes sense. A lot of assembly errors show up as dead circuit, reversed polarity, loose ground, or something that works until you hit a bump. You can't simulate bumps on the lot, but you can catch obvious mistakes. Propane and heat deserve respect. Confirm detectors are present and powered. Run the furnace. Confirm it ignites consistently and that the exhaust and intake are correctly installed. Run the water heater on propane and electric if it supports both. This is not about comfort. It's about safety and correct venting. Slides and leveling systems, run them multiple times. Listen. Watch seal contact. Watch for uneven movement. If the slide drags, binds, or looks like it's twisting, that's not a break-in feature. That's alignment, support, or assembly. Cabinetry and furniture. Yes, this is fit and finish, but it's also a vibration predictor. Open every cabinet. Tug gently on handles. Look for missing screws. Look at hinge alignment. Look at drawer slides. A drawer that barely works on the lot will not magically improve after 1,000 miles. Finally, read the warranty like a contract, because it is a contract. Pay attention to what is labeled as owner maintenance, especially anything related to seals and caulking. Ask the dealer to show you where the owner's manual spells out inspection intervals and what evidence you should keep. If the warranty language shifts water leak responsibility onto maintenance quickly, then your ownership plan needs to include documented inspections. Otherwise, you can end up paying for structural damage while arguing about whether you maintained a bead of sealant correctly. If the dealer pushes you to accept delivery fast, slow it down. If they won't allow a thorough inspection, treat that as information. If they won't fix obvious issues before delivery, treat that as more information. The most expensive RV problems aren't mysterious. They're the ones you can see early if you know where to look. Ceiling quality, alignment, bond integrity, wiring discipline, and whether the seller is acting like service will be easy later.